I can fly anywhere in the world. I have flown jets. I am ready to get into space. I have flown all small aircraft. I have taught over 3,000 people to fly and get a private license in my lifetime. And I have over 19,600 flight hours, much more than captains have. Because I've been flying since I was, as an instructor, since I was 16 at Stevens College. And then went on to Oklahoma State College. And then I was hired by FAA in the 80s. And I did a good job for them. And guess who stole me over? Was the National Transportation Safety Board, because I had the gift of being happy and doing my work when I was out there on a fatal accident. And I have done 450 accident investigations in my lifetime.
When I was 23, I finished the test with Loveless, and I said, I want to go overseas. I wanted to buy a Volkswagen camper, and I did. Got it at, oh golly, what city was I in? Somewhere near France. I got it, and I started my trip, and guess what? I had to learn. Where are the gas stations? They're underground. You had to go underground to get your fuel. So anyway, I started, and in 3 years, I made 59 countries, and that was all of Europe, Russia, and all of the Mideast, where you can't go today. And I wouldn't want to go today. And all of Africa. I completely went around Africa, and that's when I got to be with the animals in North Africa at one of the places there that they have all the animals. So when it came time, and they said, well, you want to ride this and this and this and this? I said, sure, I want to ride them all. Do you want to ride the alligator? I said, you bet. How many have ridden an alligator? Nobody? All you do is put your hand over the alligator's eyes, over their eyes, and get on and you ride. It was great. And that's one of the pictures that The Guardian put in. So I don't know if you can get that. So, because my parents were so great and told me that I could do anything I wanted to do, that was the great confidence I've had all my life. I could do anything, anytime, anywhere. So, the good ability that I was born with and forward-thinking folks, they were great. I'll just tell you what I am. I'm impulsive, I'm spontaneous, I'm complex, I'm precise. I have built 2 homes, even out of Adobe in Taos. I'm a risk taker, but I'm not to the point where I would hurt myself or hurt any of my students. I never stop, and I march to my own drummer. And if you were around me when I was in London, they couldn't keep up with me. Okay, I'm going to talk about phase 1. Jerry Cobb, I don't know if that's a name that you would know, was in Oklahoma, and I was at Oklahoma, called and said, Wally, do you want to be an astronaut? I said, yes. Well, then get a hold of Dr. Lovelace in Albuquerque and make the appointment. And I did. I got a hold of him. He said, okay, be here in 2 Mondays. So I had to drive from Fort Sill to my home in Taos, and my parents drove me to Albuquerque. And kind of an interesting thing, when we walked in and signed in, they said, Wally, you're number 2 to take these tests, but you're underage. I was only 20. So my folks signed me in, and I did it. And you know what? All those other girls were, I don't know, 28, 29, 30, 35. When it came down to Lovelace telling me what I had done, they said, you beat everybody that's taking these tests. And then when I went to Russia, the same thing happened.
I just knew that there were tests. I knew that the Mercury 7 had gone through some of these tests, but I didn't know how much I was going to get. I didn't know that they had all been there. And then I found out there were 100 and some guys selected from the records of military records. But out of that 100 and some men that took those tests, how many passed? 7. So Dr. Lovelace got rather upset the fact that they couldn't do a better job of passing his astronaut tests. And he said, let's try the girls. Oh, light bulb. So they picked people from the records, the FAA records, because Jerry told me right straight away, I was already in touch with Dr. Lovelace and already accepted. There were 32 girls picked. But how many passed? 13. And I'm the only one around that is still a pilot of the Mercury 13.
Being the youngest, I was just the kid, and I loved that. All of the girls, we didn't know each other. Like the guys, there were how many? 125 guys. How many made it? 7. But they all knew each other. They were older, they were pilots, they drank too much, they smoked too much, and they had a lively life. Not anything that I was used to. So that's why they only got 7 out of that 100 and some. Dr. Lovelace really liked that. He says, you come and you come and you come. No, you're gone. Now, the girl I was supposed to go with, she didn't make it the first hour at Lovelace. I made it the whole week. And then I was by myself. And the girls that came in weeks after that I was there, I didn't know any of them. I only knew Jerry from when she called me. So we were invited by one of the astronauts to come and go to the launch. And I did. And I've been to every launch that every girl has ever been in Florida. Yeah, I wanted to support them. So I took 97 different tests that week. You won't believe this. I don't have that page. Okay. The first thing they did is they took temperatures, stuck needles all around me, drew blood, drew other things, stuck tubes down me, took tubes up me for some reason to get some kind of whatever they're looking for. Do I have any doctors in the house? I have no idea what they were doing. I was there, I was happy, and I said, do what you have to do. And some of the other girls, I understand later, were grumpy, and the guys would walk out if they didn't like the test. So, okay, second day. They put me in a chair, and they have a needle with 10-degree water into my right ear. Now, I'm sure some of you have hurt your ear with a Q-tip. It doesn't feel real good, does it? Can you imagine what 10 degrees of water being squirted in your ear would feel like? And I was always taught, don't ever scream, don't ever do anything that is not correct, because I was brought up in a very, very correct household. My parents came from Illinois. So, the only thing Mother asked of me was, have your bath, be dressed up, and ready to meet the guests, because they had a lot of guests in Taos, at 5 o'clock every night. And I was there, and I sat, and I didn't get up unless I shook hands, and I was approached. And I didn't talk unless I was approached. Okay, so when it came time for this, can you imagine what the guys must have said? Well, not many of them did that. A lot of verbal. I just said, ooh. Well, that was interesting. So then they let me wait it out for an hour, and they came back and said, okay, Wally, we're going to do your left ear. I said, oh, okay. No big deal. Oh, my word. I think I said that, but I'm not sure, because nothing was filmed and there were no pictures of our time. And I was surprised that I even said that. But that's all I said. So it takes a while I didn't faint. I didn't get off my rocker. I didn't do anything bad. Some of the guys did. They really got off their rocker badly. If you can imagine, because I don't want you to do it, but if you ever have anything to do with your ear and they get really into your eardrum, you'll feel that hurt. So anyway, that was one of them. So they've been up me, down me. Then they sent me over to Los Alamos to see how much radiation I had in my body. Did you all know you had radiation in your body? I didn't. Of course, being 20 years old, I didn't know a lot about any of this medical stuff. So, okay, we did that. Then another test, the centrifuge test. Does anybody know what that is? Okay. Since I taught acrobatics in the Stearman, what kind of maneuvers were I doing? 360s, hard, fast, when I was teaching in California. And I told my people, eat very gently, don't drink anything, because I didn't want them getting sick. So I guess the guys, when they were in the centrifuge test, got sick and just did funny things. I was used to it. I had no qualms about it because I had done so many G's in that Stearman that when they put me in there, I said, give me all you got. 5 and then 5.5 G's. And I was still fine pushing out the buttons that came up, red or green or blue or whatever. No big deal to me. I did not faint. I did not get silly. I was fine. I was like, just right now. You can put me in a centrifuge and I'll go around and around because that's what that Stearman taught my brain. Also being from altitude. So, those of you, how many have been in a centrifuge? 1? How many G's did you take? You don't know. Okay. Well, for some people, it really kind of gets you in a different position. But I knew I could do anything and everything. Mother said when I was about, 10 years old, honey, do you want to cook? I said, heavens no. I want to be outside. I'm a tomboy, and I was, my whole childhood until they sent me to college at 14, I never graduated from high school, just went right into college. And I could build tree houses, airplanes, balsa wood airplanes. Do you remember those that came in boxes? I had a ton of those hanging from my ceiling. Father would bring them to me from the store, and he would love it. And I said, this is special. Take it right up there. And then when I would make these, when I had a really big one, you have to cut all these pieces out and then glue them together and then put them together. And here I was so young with a razor blade. Most parents would not even let their kids have a razor blade until they're 15. I cut everything out, had it all ready, had my tissue paper ready. I put it all on the wings, on the body, on the elevator, on the rudder. And I saw Mother doing something with a thing like this. So I went to the bathroom and I found that bottle and I didn't know what it was. I poured the stuff out and put water in it because I needed to squirt water on my tissue paper to make it taunt. Well, it worked, but I had to come clean with Mother that night. And I said, Mother, I used your atomizer. I didn't know what that was. And I said, I did pour your, I said, was it good perfume? He said, it was very good perfume. So anyway, the airplane got as many, did so many airplanes, it was incredible. Because when I left to go to college, and then I came back and to go to Oklahoma State, all of those, had a girl, all of my airplanes were given away, and I never saw any. And you know what? You can't get those You can't get those models anymore to make. It's really silly what's out there for the kids today. So I had the great time of putting many, many airplanes away, and or make on them, rather. So phase one was everything to do with my body and how well I could take things. And that centrifuge was so neat. I loved it. I wanted to go more. I wanted to go further, but they didn't have the time. So, and I would do it again. When I did, after all these tests, and I went to Russia, I did the same thing. I said, give me 5.5 Gs. I said, you're kidding. No. Well, you'll faint. I said, no. So they gave me 5.5 Gs. And that's the time that I met Valentina when I was over there. I went over to Russia 3 times, and I met her on the second trip. She was a great gal. Phase 2 was a psychological test given in Oklahoma City, which was 3 days of testing, and, oh, God, psychologists. If you're a psychologist, I'm sure that you'll know what I'm talking about. They asked me anything and everything, of which sometimes I didn't know what they were talking about. Okay, so after a day or so of psychological tests, they said, well, we're going to put you in the isolation tank. Does anybody know what that is? I walked into this room. They said, bring your swimsuit. And it's a huge tank in this other room. And, of course, they had taken my temperature and so forth. So when I walked in, there was a clock, and it said 8:30. I said, I'm going to see what it says when I get out of here. Then I walked in, took my towel off. They said, be very careful getting into the pool. I have just enough foam rubber to go here and here. Guess what the guys and the other girls had? What other kind of flotation gear is there? Come on. Yeah, they had flotation gear. I didn't. I had only this and only this to stay like that. Spread eagle out. They wanted to test me. They wanted to test the kid. So I got in there and I got comfortable and I put those things on the back of my back and neck. And I did this. So dark, no noise. And you know what? When I got in there, I pounded the water. You couldn't feel it. You could not feel the water. Couldn't feel it on my face. Tried to lick it. I couldn't taste it. That room was exactly my same temperature and the humidity and everything else that those people did to make it my same temperature. Whatever it was, 80-something degrees. I thought, well, those guys are pretty smart. And I found out later that a lot of people did not pass that test. Okay, so I'm just supposed to lay there like this. Not move, not swim, not duck, nothing. I found out later people, guys and girls, did everything possible, and they only might have stayed in 2 or 3 minutes. Well, pretty soon I hear a voice come on, and they said, Wally, do you need to go to the bathroom? I said, no, I already did that. It's all water. How you doing? I said, I'm doing terrific. Never complained, never said anything. And then, much later, because what I did is when I got in there and I couldn't feel everything, I shut off my brain. When you get into a place that's really, you don't know where you are, I could shut off my brain and I took it right up to the heavens. No clouds, no sun, no moon, no anything. If you can understand what I'm saying. Didn't want anything in my brain. I wanted only the blue, the sky. So I laid there. I was not unhappy. I didn't think about a lot of things because I don't remember anything that I might have thought about. So another voice comes on. Wally, how you doing? I said, excellent. They said, we're going to turn the light on and come on out the same door you went in, and then we'll have some more tests. So I got the towel on me, and I got out and so forth. And then, of course, when I walked out, I wanted to see what that clock said as I was walking out. They were so smart, they covered that clock up. I didn't know how long I'd been in there. So now I've got more psychological tests to go through. They want to know what's in my brain. So along with a lot of the tests, they said, what kind of music do you like? Because all the music was strange. I said, opera. I was brought up with records on the Victrola and actually conducting the orchestra. And then is when Santa Fe came up. I got to go to the Santa Fe Orchestra. Then my parents saw how interested I was in opera. They sent me to New York, and I could be with them. And also, I was with the orchestra when I went to Stevens College. So that almost took over my flying, but it didn't. So anyway, doctors say, what kind of music you like? Opera. Well, they're blank faces. And then, all right, then somebody said, who wrote Nabucco? I said, Verdi. Their mouths dropped open. The psychological test quit. I guess I had it in me to say, hey, there's a couple of things I might know. Anyway, that was that particular test, and they said, Wally, you stayed in 10 hours and 35 minutes and never peeped. Wait, I can't hear you. Oh, heavens, not more than 5 or 3. And the girls, not more than 4 or 5. So, but you see, to me, I grew up by myself. Oh, I was out at the Taos Indian Pueblo, and I played with the Indians. Now, in Taos, you're either Spanish, God, help me. Yeah, number one. You're either Indian or Spanish or gringo. And I'm a gringo, as most of you all are. Okay, so nothing ever bothered me. I could do anything. Father would give me any kind of tool that I needed to make tree houses or barns, ride my horse. And Mother did say, when you're riding your horse, riding your bike, falling out of the tree, if you have a skiing problem, because I skied, I went to the Olympics. She said, if you ever hurt yourself, you lick the wound and keep on going. Don't you come home unless you've broken something. And I never did. So they were great. They were very, very knowledgeable about what a kid could do. And I was the only kid. So, phase 2, we marked a good thing about the isolation tank and the water. No hallucinations. Phase 3 was done at El Toro. Had the high altitude chamber test, which went up to 40,000 feet. Well, that wasn't any big deal. At, I think about 20,000 feet, they said, Wally, I think you ought to put on your mask, put on your oxygen. I was ready to go a little further because I had already been on the large aircraft that went back and forth. Somebody help me here. It's gone out of my brain. Concorde. And they flew at around 20,000, 30,000 feet. And I wanted to try it without oxygen, and I could do it. You know how to hold it. Many of you, every morning, when you're in bed, or when you get up, take deep breaths and hold it and then let it out. Now, I was taught to take 3 breaths. And I bet you all didn't know that. You can take 3 deep breaths, hold it, and then let it out. And you'll see how well you maneuver. And then while you're doing that, maneuver your fingers, your toes. So I learned a lot from those folks. And I still do all my exercises. So I did the 40,000, was no big deal. They did so much at at El Toro and Edwards Air Force Base that it was incredible. Then I applied to NASA, and they said, Wally, we want to have you, because the girls all wanted me to come. They knew what I had done. And NASA said, well, Wally, you don't have an engineering degree. So what? One of the other astronauts didn't have one, but he went up to space. Well, you need one. So at the time, I was teaching in Dayton, Ohio. So I went to one of the doctors, or the colleges there, and I said, I came here to get my engineering degree, because I've got a BS and much other degrees. And he tapped me on the shoulder. He said, you're a girl, go to home ec. That's the first time anybody had ever talked negative to me. My grandfather was fantastic. He says, if any man ever comes up to you and touches you or talks incorrectly to you, you turn around and walk away. So when he did that to me, I was kind of shocked, but I said thank you, and I turned around and walked away. So I never got my engineering degree, but I told the folks back in Florida that I would still keep trying to get all the tests possible to get up there. Well, as you know, the program stopped. I knew all the girls that went up, and they were grateful. In fact, one of the girls, this was on picture up there, took my 99 pin. That was not this one, but does anybody know what the 99s are? They are women pilots that in 1929, there were all these girls in a place somewhere in New York, and they said, oh, look at all of us pilots. Let's call ourselves something. Well, there were 99 girls in attendance, and that's where the word, the 99s, came from, and the pin, a 9 with a 9, and the propeller going through it. They are in Oklahoma City, is where headquarters is. And anything that I need, they are very, very happy to help me. I have my website, my personal website there, which is wallyfly.com. So, anyway.
Hey, Wally.
Sir.
Who the astronaut was that didn't have an engineering degree but somehow made it in outer space?
I can't remember his name.
John Glenn.
Oh, okay, there you go. Thank you. Maybe I better write that down. So, as you know, I went to Star City, and I learned that. But I learned so much from my parents that it was just absolutely incredible how they didn't understand what I was doing in flying and getting all my licenses. Every license the FAA has to offer, I have. From private up to airline transport rating, because I was an airline captain at one time. And sometimes people don't know what a glider is. They said, well, it doesn't have an engine. I said, well, it doesn't need one. It's a glider. Helicopter. Oh, golly. You name it, I've got it. And I have flown it. And I've made 5 or 6 jumps without somebody in front of me. Done them on my own in California. California was a great place to do things. And so I was there as chief pilot for quite a few years. And then I've been a chief pilot all over the United States. So Somebody said, well, to become skilled and competent and professional and wise, where do you want to be in 5 to 10 years? Oh, I'm sorry you're leaving. So here I am, 5, 10 years later. I've done everything I've wanted to do. I've taught over 3,000 people to fly and get their licenses. And of those people, I said, I want you to go to the airlines, American Airlines, or an airline, or to the military, because I had done both. I have done more than most people have done in their lifetime. And I love it. And I'll still keep doing it, because I'm only 45, and that you remember that. So, there's something here you never get to do two things twice. It's always once, isn't it? If you want to do something, the first time is what counts. In aviation, it counts. The second time might not count. So, Mother put a thing up on my apartment in California, and she says, honey, don't go faster than your angel can fly. And I still have it. So, as you can tell, my folks were absolutely fantastic. And we only have to remember, you girls, the only thing a woman needs to do to compete in a man's world is ability. And I've got that. I can do anything. You'll appreciate this. Out by the airport at Taos, I built a 2-story adobe house. Took me 4 or 5 years to do. But I did it myself. I laid the bricks. I did the electric. I did the plumbing. I know how to do all that. And then when I was living over here in Trophy Club, I could do the same thing when things went wrong. Hi, guys. Come on in. Okay. Well, now that I've had some things to tell you all, I want you to put your head down, close your eyes, and don't think about anything. Close your eyes, put your head down. And I'm going to repeat something to you. I am but a footprint on the earth, a wing against the sky, a shadow in the water, a voice beneath the fire. I am one footstep going on and on and on. And I want to thank you for coming and waiting. And I just adore all of you for being here today. And then I'm going to go on a little bit with history, but that was the end of my speech. Does anybody remember Harriet Quimby? Well, she was the first licensed woman in 1912 to fly in the United States and was flying the English Channel. Now, the English Channel, I've been out there many, many times. And when that happened, something else happened. The Titanic sank. Oh, well, there's always something that goes over. She was overshadowed by the press, and more women came along. Eileen Collins is my most favorite astronaut. I've been to all of her launches, and she's the one that took my pin up, Eileen Collins, and I don't know what she's doing now. Most of all the astronauts don't continue on being astronauts. The program is not what it used to be, what we used to see on TV. The vehicles are different. I saw a tire in one of the museums in London. That tire, I wish I had the picture, was about that high and quite thick that went on those vehicles that took our astronauts up. I couldn't believe it. So, Eileen has been absolutely great. And, she went up in 95 and was overshadowed by the Oklahoma City bombing. There's always something. Then, in 84, she was overshadowed by the coal ship blast. We probably won't remember that one. The McVeigh trial. And then Bill Clinton making his apologies for being a jerk. Oh, there's the house I built. The little house first took me 2 or 3 years, and then the hangar off to the left, and then the 2-story one took 2 or 3 more years. And then the Taos Mountain, way over here. Okay, that's it, the Taos Mountain. I know you know what it is. The spirit, I live by the spirit of that Taos Mountain.
The inspiration from those mountains, but it's normally Taos Mountain, which always has a cap of snow on it. It's the tallest one of that range, which is due north of Taos. And I have flown over the Taos Mountain many times because people want me to have, to put out ashes, their loved ones' ashes. So not only did my parents as a young kid say, open your curtains and you look to the Taos Mountain because that's going to tell you what to do that day. And I still do it. I have a picture in my bedroom and I look to that Taos Mountain. And I knew you guys were coming and I knew we were going to be talking. So the Taos Mountain has a spirit for the people of Taos and the Pueblo Indians. Somebody else comes from outside, they don't have a clue. They might have read about it, but they might not believe it. I believe it because that's what my parents taught me. And they believed it. None of the other people ever inspired me. Doctors didn't inspire me because I knew from the spirit of that Taos Mountain what I needed to do, and my body was going to do it. My mind was going to do it, and I was going to be the best at what I could do. And mostly it was flying. I could ride my horse. I could shoot my gun. I got my Distinguished Rifleman's Award, the only girl in the United States to do that in the 50s, and get a letter from President Eisenhower. I did things that were abnormal for girls to do and do well, accelerate in.
So talk about your flying then and the Flying Aggies, can you?
Okay.
Because my brother got his pilot license at Oklahoma State, and I was just there about a year ago, and we flew in and out of the Stillwater Airport, which hasn't changed a bit except for the security. And here are all the Oklahoma State planes lined up, must be 20, 30, anyway. And I thought, Wally and Hal, my brother Hal, you know, flew those planes. And he wasn't a Flying Aggie, but you were. I saw it on your shirt.
I have, one of my big trophies is still in the trophy case in the front part of Oklahoma, at the airport there. Okay, coming back to her story. So I was supposed to get all dressed up and go to this dance, and dances to me were very boring. Yeah, I can dance and I can do all that stuff. I probably did it at Stevens because we had to do it there, but we didn't have to be so dressed up. So here we had to be dressed up at Oklahoma State. So I did one dance, and as she said, I went right up to my room, changed my clothes to a t-shirt and pants, climbed out the window, got in the car, and went right to the airport and went flying. I don't think my parents ever knew that, but that's just part of me. So I have been doing fun, wonderful time things all my life. So enough of me. Let me have some of your questions.
Well, talk about the Flying Aggies and what they do, because I don't think a lot of people know who they are.
I got all my ratings, except my ATP, through a wonderful instructor. Yeah. Can't think of his name right now. Anyway, I was grateful that I had the instructor at Tyner Lapsley. And then I lived with him for a little bit after I graduated. Did you know them? Lapsleys? No, not Tyner. Okay. He was so nice and gentle, and so was my instructor at Stevens. They didn't hit you. They didn't slap you. They put your hand on the throttle and a hand on the throttle and everything gently, and that's the way I teach now. I've got a 9-year-old that I'm teaching now. She can do everything but the pedals because I taught her very gently what to do with her hands. And then when I'd say, okay, let's put the throttle forward, and you're going to see the airplane take off, and when the nose rises up, you come back with the wheel a little bit, and you're going to be flying. And that's just the way I teach. And that's the way they did it at Oklahoma State. So I got all my ratings there in 2 years. I was out at the airport more than I was in school. I don't even know how I got my degree. And the man that's the head of the program, head of the college, is still there. Do you remember his name? Because I was interviewed by Oklahoma State, came and interviewed me 2 months ago, so they should have another thing out. So anyway, Hargis. Hargis is still there. And I knew him a long time ago. Anyway, I have great feelings with all the 2 colleges that I went to, because I was so young when I went to Stevens. My advisor called and said, Mrs. Funk, your daughter's not doing too well in her studies. And Mother would say, do you have an airport out there? I said, yes. Then you get her out there. And that's how it started. So
tell us about this picture.
My parents knew what to do. And that's that's at Fort Sill, and I'm flying at 195.
Is that your first plane?
Heavens no. I flew littler airplanes first. You had to fly tail wheel, smaller airplanes first. No, that was just when I flew people to around the United States.
Next, please.
Okay, that's in the Stearman. I would always sit in the front, and then if I had to get out on the wing, I'd step on the wing, and I could yell back to my student because we didn't have headsets in those days.
Did you catch the key word, step on the wing?
I stepped on the wing. I got out there and stepped on the wing. And then the tower would come along and say, Wally, get in the airplane.
My most favorite airplane to fly, I was only 20 years old when I was introduced to the Stearman, which had a Continental 220 engine in it, 2 wings on each side, open cockpit. I flew from the front. My students flew from the back. That Stearman was so great to me, and I could fly it so well. I took people up from Hawthorne, California, and I would teach them how to do acrobatics because I knew how to do acrobatics by looking at pictures in the books and watching what guys were doing in the military. And I could do exactly what they were doing.
That's just an open cockpit thing when I was giving a speech somewhere in the East Coast. Okay, that's the one and only picture of Loveless, and I'm on the treadmill doing, 4 or 5 miles. But that's the only picture that they ever got of me. And then that was down at, it was down in Florida. And I wanted to try on a suit, and I wanted to get in a lot of those things, and because of my friend, I was able to get into some of those vehicles. And then I saw a lot of those vehicles that came down, splashed down, that the museums have in London. London is a great town for museum stuff, but boy, you can't drive there. You have to take the train or a cab. So I was on about 20 or so trains and cabs the whole time I was there. Okay, this is in Russia with the cosmonauts, and I'm doing. It's just they would go up to about 15,000 feet and dive the airplane straight down, and you'll come off, and you can do any kind of acrobatics you want. Now, I didn't like the guy holding on to me. I said, let loose of me. I know what I'm doing. I practiced this maneuver in somebody's swimming pool to swim around and do exactly what I want to do, because there's about 5 or 6 shots, but I don't know how many you have. Okay, this is in the gimbal rig, which was a piece of cake for me. And these were I never knew them. So I knew Jerry there with the black shirt, but the rest of them are gone, and Jerry's gone, and she's the one that really got me into the program.
Now these are all Mercury 7? Mercury 13?
No. This is what was left, back when Eileen went up but there's none left anymore.
Just Wally.
Me. Okay, that's the bunch of us. So go to the next slide. No, go to the next slide. I don't go by that name. Okay. I don't know how you got that. Pacific Aviation Museum. Oh, okay, yeah, I was there. This is my life in space, Oklahoma State, air races, my time. I'm an honorary colonel, and I love to teach flying. I wish I could teach all you youngsters to fly, because then you could get on with a good way of making a living.
And this is the photo that appeared in The Guardian
Okay, that's in The Guardian.
last Sunday.
I had patches all over the front and the back of my jacket, and they loved it. I wore that jacket more, and I had my uniform twice, and let's see. Here's Stevens, and then FAA and NTSB. Of course, they didn't know what all that meant. And air races, and then I don't know if you have the back or not. Oh, he showed it already? Okay, Oklahoma State on the top. So I had a great time in London. I spoke a lot for those 5 or 6 days, and it was only about, I don't know, anywhere from 5 minutes to 20 minutes. Did you hear something before I walked in? And because I don't remember which one it was and what I had said. Probably a lot of what I had just told you. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, was I talking about the tests? Or they were just asking questions? Yeah. Yeah, I'd walk into a room and they had to have a microphone and 2 or 3 people, and yeah, it was interesting. Okay.
I have the first question. I'm going to ask the last question too, but the first question, what I found enthralling about you when I interviewed you a year and a half ago for this program was, even though you were denied access to something you really wanted to do, and that is outer space, instead of sulking about it, you found something else, another door, another path to follow. And that's a lesson for all of us. When a door closes, is to open another door. Tell us about the other door.
I never had a door close. Before it ever happened, I was doing something else to help somebody, help an elderly, help a youngster, build, cut somebody's grass. I had a big place in Trophy Club, and I took care of that place. So I'm always doing something for somebody, or doing flying. It's very hard for me to be in a group of people at dinner time with elderly people, and all they want to do is talk about their grandkids and da-da-da-da-da-da. Of course, I have to think about something else. Because it's not flying. I could talk to you all about flying. So that's me.
Questions, comments?
Come on, NASA.
Well, because I'm wearing the shirt, I'll ask a NASA question. And I have 2 questions for you, if you don't mind. The first one is about NASA and whether you have an opinion about what they should be focusing on now. The program has changed so much over time, and it's gone very private with, getting to space.
It's gone to Russia.
Right. So that's my first question. My second question is, what advice do you have to an aspiring aerospace engineer?
To get the engineering degree and do something with it, and try to get on with an organization that will lend themselves to doing something in space. Now, we all read about somebody doing something in space. Who was it that was putting something up 2 or 3 days ago to go in outer space? Give me a name. Musk. He's always doing something with his money, isn't he? And so's my guy. I don't know why they have to spend their money out so unwisely and not get us on. Since I gave them money 20 years ago, you would think that they'd had me on by now. I know we had a little accident about 4 or 5 years ago, but they have built 4 aircraft, Spaceship Twos, that I'll be in. And I'll be on the first seat on the right side. So you're absolutely right. I'll come to you. When our vehicle kind of gave up the ghost. They didn't have any more. I think, you know what? I think Russia just kind of took over our program because some of our people have gone over there, and they had to be there for 2 or 3 years. They had to learn the language, they had to learn the vehicle, and then that's how they got up. I don't care about learning their language. I've been to Russia, I can say nit. And when I met Valentina, she was in her glory, and we had a speech together, and I said, the press wasn't too nice to you, was it? She said, no, it wasn't. Don't believe all of it. That was good to hear. Oh, wait, there's a lady way back in the back.
Hello. After you passed all your tests, were you able to be involved in the program to influence some of the decisions that were made on some of the space travel and provide any opinions or ideas or innovation to the program?
No, because I wasn't an engineer, and I wasn't in the science program. But that was a good question. The lady way back in the back row. Bye, y'all. I know the time's running short.
They make it seem like some of the NASA astronauts supported what you guys were doing up into the hearing. They make it sound like some of the astronauts actually supported what you guys were going to do, but then when it came to the hearing, all of a sudden they kind of betrayed you guys. Do you think that was because of the pressure NASA put on them?
Yes, the guys were not for us at all. And if you remember back 70s or somewhere in there along, when Vice President Johnson was on, and they had another lady and a couple of Jerry and one other, Mrs. Hart, were in Washington saying, we need more girls, we need the Mercury 13 to go on. They closed it down and said, it's finished. We're not supporting anymore. And that's the way it was. So I've done everything on my own, and I'm paid for it on my own if somebody didn't want to help me with it.
Mrs. Hart was the wife of Senator Hart, and she was trying to lobby for Wally and the other ladies to be eligible for the NASA program, and they abruptly cut her off.
Yeah, she had like 7 kids. I mean, she was a great lady, but I only knew her for about 5 minutes.
Are there any planes you have not flown that you'd like to fly?
Oh, I've flown tons of planes. I wish I had my Stearman back. I really did. I love that airplane. I could do more stuff in it. Then here's something else that you don't know about me. About early 80s, I was at a car club. I had a Bentley. Oh, wait a minute. I had a Bentley that I showed. Well, it didn't have really good features. It had too much junk on it. It wasn't really clean. So the men that were winning all of these car meets said, Wally, go up to Pasadena and get that Rolls Royce that's up there that nobody cares about. I said, oh, really? I went right up to Pasadena. I met the people. I said, how much do you want for it after I'd looked it over? And they told me, and I don't remember how much I paid for it, probably $10,000 or something like that. I drove it back to Hermosa Beach, and I still have a home there. And the only thing I had to do to that car, they had kept it up so well, was put new tires on it and put chinchilla carpeting in the back, because that's what the Queen wanted. Chinchilla carpeting. I had to really look into Hollywood to get that. But it was so beautiful. I climbed underneath it so many times with so many rags and kept everything absolutely clean. The outside was pristine, black. And I think it had a blue stripe around it. So when I got it in those shows, I won every show that I was in for 2 years. It was a great car, and it ran well. Oh, and then I was an accident investigator for the NTSB at that point, and I had done 45 accident investigations. Now, you know, when they crash, you have to have somebody go out and do it. Well, that was me. in 4 states. Well, one time I thought, I'm going to take the rolls to this accident site. So I did, and everybody just loved the car and jovial. Because, going to an accident site's not fun for if somebody's there. And I would never allow any of the family to be near me. And not the press either. So I got back, and my boss said, Wally, you really did a good job on that accident, but I have a suggestion. Don't ever take that car again. Use a government car. That's what you're supposed to use. I said, okay. But wasn't that night the way he said it? Yeah, that's an accident investigation. I can't remember which one that was, but obviously the wing came off, and that's the fuselage over there. But I wish I had all my pictures to show you, but they're in a locker in Albuquerque right now.
But there's no plane you haven't flown that you'd like to fly?
I just got off the 777, and I always walk on with the captain whenever airplane I get on, and they always invite me to the cockpit. And one guy coming back said, would you like to sit in the chair? And that's the second chair that I always used to sit in when I would go on accident investigations. I said, you're very nice to let me be with you all, but I had too much luggage. But I always know the captains and the first officers, and I've had 2 girls. I had a girl going over and a girl coming back that was in the cockpit.
Questions? Okay.
Oh, here we go. I'll beat you.
No, he's got to speak into. He's got to speak into.
Oh, you stand up. No.
No, I'm going to. Here's my question for you. I want you to imagine that John Kennedy didn't die, and that the Vietnam War got worse, Korean War, maybe, and now there aren't as many men pilots. So now you and all those women are available. Would they have sent you up? Would you have gone into space?
Of course I would have gone into space. But let's go back to your one statement. They didn't, the airlines didn't really have that many girls. Now, in the last 10 years, yes, because I had taught many of them. But they've all done very, very well for their airlines. And I've got one girl now that 6 days back and forth to Europe every week and a half. So, yes, the girls are making great pilots for the airlines, and they'll keep going. But they just missed the boat when they didn't recognize us. Well, it was money.
Any last questions?
Oh boy.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for women like you who have pioneered this for all of us. It's pretty cool. Thank you. Okay, here's my question, and my CFI would murder me for telling you this, but I got lost on my first cross-country solo.
So what? Honey, did you go over the chart really carefully and you had your
I did all that. My flight plan was
okay.
memorized indefinitely, but
was the winds
I got vectored out of an airport in a different way than I thought I would.
Okay. Well, hey, you got over it, didn't you?
Well, it was after I read a few water towers and figured out where I was, I was better. But
well, that was good. You did that.
I tried. That was all I could think of. But that was the most scared I've ever been in an airplane. And you've done so many wonderful, amazing things. I want to know, when was the one time in an airplane you thought, I might not make it out of this one?
Never, because I was so sure of myself, exactly what I could do. Remember when you have glider experience and you put it into a Stearman experience, and then DC-3s, I flew through them. I didn't even get checked out in a DC-3. I just went over there at Hawthorne and I said, can I have the key and go fly the DC-3? Sure, here. I never had anybody check me out. I knew how to fly that airplane because of the Stearman, the tail wheel. Now, are you flying 172s or 150s? 172s? Well, you tell your instructor to be gentle with you and to show you correctly how to do your charts, and you should know how to leave your airport, probably on a downwind or straight ahead or something, and so you do your next cross country perfect.
Back here.
Yes, ma'am.
We have to take it back.
Okay, wait a minute.
You mentioned that you had done the skydive alone without being tandem. Have you ever been interested in hang gliding?
Oh, I've done that many times. Hang gliding, it's easy. I go to Branson all the time for that. Okay, your question back there, honey?
Yeah. Thanks, honey.
Yeah.
Wally, have you ever flown the P-51 Mustang?
Yes, once.
How was it?
It was great. A lot of power.
A lot of power.
Have you?
No, ma'am.
Oh.
Love to.
Well,
I have not.
I don't even know if they're around anymore.
I've seen them in
But they're in air
exhibitions.
shows.
Yeah,
you
I've seen them
can't
at air
go
shows.
and say, okay, I'll give you $200 for 15 minutes.
No, that's right. Well, there's
what it
a airport south in Georgetown, Texas, just north of Austin, that they were giving flights out of there. You pay $1,500 for like 30 minutes. Anyway, so, and also,
Y'all take a ride of any airplane you can get into.
Again, thank you for being here. You never did talk about what type of career that both your parents had. And did that influence your growing up at all?
My father owned Funk's 5 and 10 in Taos. I think one other one in Las Vegas. Mother was the prim and proper dressed with long dresses that ran the city of Taos, that engaged in entertaining all of the artists that we had. Many artists from overseas came to Taos to paint the Indians, the mountains, and all the beautiful surrounding that I grew up with. And there were only 2,000 people in Taos when I was there. Now it's too big, and it's not like what I remember. The Pueblo's completely changed. The people don't live in the Pueblo anymore. I think they all have passed away. But I don't have anybody left of FAA, NTSB, or some of the people that I was so close with that are still around that I can talk to. So I talk to audiences. And my parents were great. Father didn't talk too much. He was busy doing his business. But as a youngster, I grew a lot of things. I grew things on the tomatoes and corn and stuff, and then I'd take a basket full and I'd go to the front of his store and I'd sell it. Or I'd take my rabbits that I would have, and I'd take them to the front of the store and sell it. I would take my shoe shine kit and have the tourists come and I'd shoe shine their shoe. I was always doing something in front of Daddy's store. And he loved it. And he said, honey, what are you doing with all that money? I said, I'm putting it in a jar. I'm keeping it there. He said, that's great. Do not spend it unless it's something you really want to have. And he said, I want you to remember this and live it. He said, don't ever lend anything and don't ever borrow anything. That was clothes, anything, and I never have. I've made it on my own. Mother was great. They came from a very aristocratic family, and that's the way I was brought up, to do everything correctly and speak correctly and have correct manners. I can't believe what's out there now. Thank you, sir.